Hi, it's Clemmy from the NARM Clinic, and this week I'm going to be talking about fibre. So this is following on from the series that I'm doing at the moment about different food groups that may impact inflammatory bowel disease. So I've covered gluten and dairy in my last two, so if you haven't seen them, then go and check it out. And today we're going to be talking about fibre. So first of all, what is fibre? So dietary fibre is a type of carbohydrate, and it's the part of plants that's not digested by us in our small intestine, unlike other carbohydrates like starch and sugars. So it reaches our large intestine, and then the bacteria that live within our large intestine or our colon then feed on that, and it acts as their food. So where can we find fibre? So fibre is found in fruits and vegetables, also whole grains, so things like brown rice, oats, millet, buckwheat, amaranth, quinoa, teff, barley, rye, whole wheat pasta, whole grain bread, but also in legumes, so things like beans, pulses, lentils, chickpeas, peas, and also in nuts and seeds. So what about fibre and IBD? So for many years, the advice given to patients with IBD has been to follow a low-fibre diet to help reduce symptoms during flare-ups. And as such, diets like the low-flex diet, for example, standing for low-fat, fibre, limited exclusion diet, was designed based on reports from certain patients that some specific high-fibre foods exacerbated symptoms for them. Now, in these kind of diets, these low-fibre diets, things like whole grains, nuts, seeds, and certain fruits and vegetables are limited, and that limits the fibre intake for that person to around 10 to 15 grams of fibre a day, and that's around half of what's usually recommended for a healthy balanced diet. So the recommendations are 30 grams a day, so it's halving that in these diets. And in addition to that, many people often end up staying on these diets, on these lower fibre diets for much longer than is recommended, so around kind of 2 to 4 weeks. Now, whilst a low fibre diet is important for people with a higher risk of bowel obstruction, so that's people with strictures or with stomas, the evidence now actually suggests that people with IBD do well or even better with higher fibre intakes than those who follow a low fibre diet. And that's even when people have active inflammation. But despite this, a low fibre diet is still far too often recommended by gastroenterologists and dietitians. But the research is saying that that shouldn't be the case now, and that's what all the papers are pointing towards. So, in fact, some research has actually shown that people with IBD who restrict fibre could actually be more likely to relapse, which is obviously the kind of main thing that we're trying to avoid. And there's also emerging evidence that suggests that high fibre diets, like a more plant-based diet, could be effective in inflammatory bowel disease. And again, kind of going forward, that again, just backing up the fact that fibre is important in IBD. There's also research to show that supplementing with some really specific types of fibres could actually reduce relapses in ulcerative colitis. So the reason why this is that basically the research in the area of gut health and the microbiome and the microbiota, so they're the bacteria and fungi and yeast that live within us, in recent years has, probably in the last kind of 10 years or so, has revealed that how important those microbes are that live within our intestine and how the compounds they produce are so important, and they are there to help keep us healthy. So, and if we're not eating enough fibre, then we're depriving these microbes of the food that they need to thrive and to live, and this can also impact the compounds they produce, which helps support the lining and health of the digestive tract. So things get a little bit more complicated when we look at the different types of fibres. So there are certain types of fibres that may cause symptoms in some people with IBD, and researchers found that the removal of these for a short period of time, and that's anywhere between 2 and 8 weeks or so, followed then by a really strategic, strict reintroduction phase, has been shown to help some people. But something that's really important is these kind of restrictive diets should never be followed long term. So the research shows that actually when followed long term, these very kind of specific restrictions can actually have a negative impact on the balance of bacteria, which could then perhaps lead to relapses and more problems. So dietary recommendations for IBD are constantly evolving as more and more research is coming out, but it really seems like there's a real shift in the thinking around fibre and IBD, and I see it in clinic as well. It really seems the low fibre diet has had its time, unless in really specific cases, as mentioned above. But the research is now showing that long-term restriction of dietary fibre to control symptoms is actually perhaps more likely to have a negative impact on our digestive health, and particularly on colon health in the longer term. So what should you do? So if you follow a low fibre diet and have done for a long time, or you're not sure what to do, then my first piece of advice is to get help. So if you experience lots of symptoms or you're not sure which fibres or whatever, then you need to speak to a nutrition professional, and you need someone to help to guide you to work out the best way forward for you specifically. And to help to get help in how you move forward from your low fibre diet and increase that fibre. If you decide to go it alone, then my main tip would be take it slowly. If you have followed a low fibre diet for a while or are following it now, if you suddenly start eating loads of fibre, then you might experience unwanted side effects, so things like bloating and pain. So you really need to take it really slowly. So really gradually, really slowly start introducing different fibres into your diet, starting with very small amounts first. So even like half a tablespoon or less, and then work up over a period of time. So that might be a period of days, but perhaps weeks, or perhaps longer if you're a particularly sensitive individual. And start with the foods containing fibre that you know that you can tolerate okay first, and increase those a little, and then work out from there and include other foods. And doing it this way will actually help your system to adapt and also increase your tolerance over time to different foods. But one thing in there, again, the caveat really important, is if you have strictures or if you've been told to follow a low fibre diet specifically because you're at more risk of bowel obstruction, then this is not for you. And the last thing is, which is really important to remember when we're considering everything to do with inflammatory bowel disease and food and nutrition, is that fibre is probably only one piece of the puzzle. So if you've watched my other videos, then you'll know I'm always talking about pieces of the puzzle, because it's never one thing that's going to be the magic pill that solves everything when it comes to IBD and nutrition specifically as well. We need to look at all of those pieces of the puzzle, and that includes all the different foods and different food groups, all the different nutrients, any nutrient deficiencies, your digestive health, but also your sleep, stress, movement, and how all of those things interlink to help or to hinder your progress. And again, with this, it's really important that we're not always focusing on what we need to remove, so removing different fibres or whatever. It's actually, we need to be working on what can we be including to make your diet more supportive to support your condition. And ultimately the aim is, and this is the aim with all my clients, is to improve quality of life and help you to achieve nutritional balance, but through the least restrictive diet as possible. Anyway, I hope that was helpful and you took something away that was useful from that. If you have any questions or you'd like some help, then please do get in touch. You can get in touch through my website and book a free call. Also, as a reminder, is if you find these videos interesting, then please subscribe so you're notified when my new videos come out. And we'll see you again soon.